Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. In today's edition, well, I covered Jonas Vingegaard yesterday when we're talking about Algarve and a little bit with Primoz Roglic, but the other top page one rider at the very top of page, the number one ranked rider in the world, Tadej Pogačar, he was over at the UAE Tour. Now, when I was talking about Jonas Vingegaard yesterday, I talked about a lot of the mistakes that they had made on the first summit stage, the only summit stage, stage 2 there of Algarve, where Visma Lease bike allowed Ben Tullet to go in that break. That put Jonas Vingegaard behind the mark and made it where once Ben Tullet got dropped from that front group, all of a sudden Jonas Vingegaard with 2 kilometers to go and a 30-second gap to the front group was forced to ride in the front. Almeida jumped him, went across to the group and put himself in with a slight bit of a shot to win the individual time trial on the last stage 5. Okay, we know how that played out. Jonas made up a ton of time, ended up winning the general classification by 15 seconds. So where am I getting at when I'm trying to go over with Tadej Pogačar? Well, Jonas Vingegaard, Visma Lease bike made mistakes at Algarve. When we look at UAE Team Emirates racing at the UAE Tour, well, Tadej Pogačar was making a bunch of mistakes too. We love those knucklehead mistakes because it makes everything exciting. I love watching them and I love bringing the coverage to you guys. But when you look at the tactical mistakes at UAE Tour for Tadej Pogačar, remember, in between the 2 climbing stages of the last stage and stage 3 that Tadej Pogačar ended up winning both the final stage and stage 3 summit finish. But in between there, when we're talking about 4, 5, and 6, those flat stages, Tadej Pogačar was lighting up the course, trying to drive it as hard, split it in the crosswinds, do everything he possibly could, especially on 4, and 5. Now, when we go into stage 7, there's a big split, even though it's the summit, the most famous at the UAE Tour, Jebel Hafit. Well, that race splits too in the crosswind. And UAE Team Emirates are working in that front group. It's 40 guys. There's a dozen guys up the road, 11 later, but 40 guys coming up to 11, and UAE Team Emirates only have 3 guys in there. They have Tadej Pogačar, Florian Vermeersch is in there, and Rune Herregold is in there. Now, Florian and Rune, those two can't climb, and it's going to be a summit finish. It's going to be a 10.5 kilometer climb with 12% sections all the way up to the finish, and they're in the front group that's going to gain 3 minutes on the second group of the peloton. That has Jay Vine. Jay Vine is UAE Team Emirates, and he's sitting 5th on the general classification. He's a threat that if something happened to Tadej Pogačar, that he would be a backup plan for UAE Team Emirates to still win the general classification when Jebel Hafit's climb starts proper, if it was all together. Instead, once we see the race blowing up with about 130 kilometers, 125 kilometers to go, once that 40 group goes away, we see up there there's Bora Hansgrohe that were really thrown down because they have Finn Fisher Black and they're trying to get him into a podium. And we see Soudal Quickstep driving it on the front because they have William Lesurf in this front group. They're trying to get him a top 10. These 2 guys, Finn Fisher Black, William Lesurf, so Bora Hansgrohe and Soudal Quickstep, they're not trying to beat Tadej Pogačar. But what can happen when they split, especially when UAE Team Emirates only have 3 guys in that front group, if Tadej Pogačar is the flat, they lose this race. Guys, there is nothing more chaotic than when you're in the crosswinds. It is the most exciting bike racing as it gets when you're fighting for the crosswinds and everyone's moving from left to right and the whole line down the chain there is moving and swaying the whole time. You cannot take your attention off the riders in front of you for a moment. You might miss the split, you might overlap the wheels, or you might just get a flat. All those possibilities could happen to Tadej Pogačar. I know what you guys are saying. It's Tadej Pogačar. It never happens. Well, it does happen to Tadej Pogačar. I can take you back to the 22 Tour de France on stage 11 when Tadej Pogačar was being super aggressive on that stage and then overran his energy and came up a Coca-Cola and a Snickers short and then bonked and lost the 22 Tour de France. So overtaxing yourself or overplaying the tactics can certainly cause you some energy. If I take you back to stages 4 and 5 of UAE Tour, when he's driving it like crazy with his teammates up there, he's wearing his teammates out. So if we come back into this last stage, before they got to go up Jebel Hafit, if his teammates are all done and toasted and it was crazy windy, it was already windy enough if you watch the stage to see the peloton blow in half, and guys chasing for 130 kilometers back there to do damage control that couldn't bring back the front group. So if Tadej Pogačar again had that flat or bad moment or overcrossed wheels or had a mechanical, we look back there and you think Mikkel Bjerg, who's in the second group back there with Jay Vine, we know for sure he did a ton of work on stages 4 for certain, and he probably did some more work trying to do the lead out and keep Tadej Pogačar in fine position all the way into 3 kilometers when we're talking about 4, 5, and 6. And then when you get into the last stage, if it's split here and Tadej Pogačar is in the front group, Jay Vine's not there, they have nobody left to win the general classification, and UAE Team Emirates are driving it in that back group, but all their guys are toasted from doing too much work, all of a sudden they possibly lose this race. To us fans sitting on the Chesterfield, UAE Tour is not that big of a race, but if you're UAE Team Emirates, this race does have some priority on the calendar. It's not the Tour de France, of course, even for UAE, but it is the Tour de France when you're talking about outside of that. That next important race is right there. So the energy that they're spending could cost them the general classification. Now, why am I bringing this all up? Well, this is how you beat these first page riders. If I bring you back to the 23 Tour of Spain, stage 6, when it was Sepp Kuss going up the road, it was Pseudo Quickstep's Remco Evenepoel that allowed that tactical mistake to happen, and it put him in a hole behind the A-ball going into every stage after stage 6 because Visma Lease Bike owned the race leader's red jersey at the Vuelta. That was a huge tactical mistake. Now these riders, sometimes Remco blows. We saw him blow at that 23 Tour de France later. Sometimes Tadej Pogačar blows, as we've seen at the Tour de France, not once, but twice in 22 and 23. Sometimes Primož Roglič blows. If I bring you back to the 2020 Tour de France on the final individual time trial stage 20 of that year when he lost to Tadej Pogačar, that's how Tadej won that. So sometimes they blow. Jonas Vingegaard, out of the first 4 riders, is the one rider that I have not seen actually blow. If I take you into last year's Tour de France, he had some bad moments, but he never completely destructed and just blew up like a bomb going off. But the first 3 do, and all 4 of them make tactical mistakes. So when it comes to the 3 riders that are behind Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard, Primož Roglič, and Remco Evenepoel, those 3 riders have to wait for tactical mistakes from Tadej Pogačar so that they can beat him. Now, when does that happen? You don't know when that can happen. It can happen at any moment. If I take you into the Road World Championships last year in 2024, Tadej Pogačar tacking from 100 kilometers out and then almost blowing up on the final lap there at the Road World Championships. He only won that race because Belgium were knuckleheads and Remco Evenepoel rode his team too hard for 1 lap when he needed to ride him for 2 or 2.5 laps, at least 2, and then they would have caught Tadej Pogačar for sure. He would have lost the Road World Championships, and I bet we're looking at a Remco Evenepoel or a Mathieu van der Poel that could possibly be wearing the rainbow band jersey after that 24 Road World Championships. Instead, the riders keep making mistakes when one of the top 4 riders attack. So Tadej Pogačar, what I saw at UAE Tour, if you guys want to argue with me, you go, well, he was going to win no matter what. Well, he's going to win no matter what. There's no doubt, assuming he doesn't have a mechanical or an accident. But if you stayed together with your teammates and you have Jay Vine there and that mechanical or accident happens, you always have Jay Vine that can go for the general classification, or you always have Jay Vine that can pace him up, Jabal Hafid there, and look after Tadej Pogačar further up the climb to keep him safer. So, what am I getting at? What I'm getting at is that all these races are unpredictable that are coming up because these 4 riders, especially Tadej Pogačar and Remco Evenepoel, those 2 for sure, they like to race aggressively. Jonas Vingegaard likes to be a little bit on the safer side, but guess what? Visma Lease Bike like to race aggressively, and that's why Jonas Vingegaard lost that first summit climb at Algarve. And if I take you back into Dauphiné on the last stage in 2023, where Ciccone won the last stage, for sure, 100%, no doubt about it, Jonas Vingegaard should have won that last stage of Dauphiné, but instead Visma Lease Bike tactically rode that stage wrong by allowing a rider to go up the road over-aggressively racing as a team, and then Jonas Vingegaard had to give up the opportunity of winning another stage at Dauphiné. So all 4 of these guys make massive mistakes, massive important mistakes, but Tadej Pogačar has made mistakes at 2 Tour de France. So right now, if you've taken away the mistakes at the 22 and 23 Tour de France, Tadej Pogačar, I believe, will be a 5-time Tour de France champion right now, multiple 5-time Tour de France champion, and you know what page that puts him on. So when we're going forward, Remember, when you guys are leaving comments saying, well, nobody can beat Tadej Pogačar, that's not true. Tadej Pogačar sometimes beats Tadej Pogačar, and that's what allows Jonas Vingegaard to actually overcome a Tadej Pogačar or one of the other favorites. So when you're watching the race, pay attention to the favorites and see if they're making those tactical mistakes. That opens up the door for other opportunity riders to come in there, race tactically smart, and possibly be able to take away a victory from Tadej Pogačar. Because again, if I just bring you back to the 24 Tour de France on stage 9 on the gravel stage, Tadej Pogačar is attacking with 90, 100 kilometers to go. And if Remco Evenepoel is not following that move, for sure, Visma Lease Bike and Soudal Quickstep can control one Tadej Pogačar on that Gravelstone stage. Maybe he blows up later because he's one Coke and one Snickers short of calories. That's never happened before, right? Just a couple years before that. So all of a sudden, we can start seeing Tadej Pogačar lose. That's why you always got to tune in to bike racing, because Tadej Pogačar is making things exciting and always leaving the door a little bit cracked open for someone else to come through and take a victory if Tadej Pogačar messes up the tactics. Well, that's my take up here for Tadej Pogačar. The 25 season is just beginning. Tadej Pogačar is going over to the one-day races now, starting at Strade Bianche, and then he's heading over to Milan-San Remo, followed up with the Belgium Classics up north. So we're going to see the Slovenian, instead of racing stage races, go into one-day race mode. And when he goes into one-day race mode, these are the type of days that you cannot make major mistakes on. Ever. Even if you're Tadej Pogačar and you make a major mistake, all of a sudden you can't win. And all we got to do is look at the last two editions of Milan-San Remo and how UAE Team Emirates didn't have the team to quite back up one Tadej Pogačar, who still over-raced Milan-San Remo too aggressively without the team backing him up, and then lost opportunities to win there. So it does happen, and it happens often. And now once we go into the one-day races, Tadej Pogačar will leave himself with the door cracked open for someone to beat him, because Tadej Pogačar races too aggressive at times and moments throughout his career. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next races real soon.